Hello, today we're going to be walking through a really common question that we get is how do I have something happen in JobTread, whether it's a customer being updated or a job, and have that trigger an action over in Zapier. There's a million different use cases that you can think of for this, but let's take the example of like a customer. If maybe you move them into a status called email drip campaign. It could then send them over to MailChimp and then, sign them up for an email campaign where you touch them every 6 months or something like that. Another example is maybe they enter a certain stage of the job and you're ready to ask them to leave a review. You could send them something from NiceJob at that moment in time, or maybe from Gmail. But the point is automation, right? So you're not having to remember to do these things. It just happens automatically behind the scenes. So it's a little bit of setup and getting comfortable with Zapier, but once it's up and running, it's a really, really nice thing and something I'd recommend to do for most businesses. So what you can do, let's kind of take the example here of updating the job status. So I want to start by showing you under settings and custom fields for your customers, for your vendors, for the jobs themselves. You can track whatever you want to track, right? So it starts here with creating these fields. And job status we already have, and so I'll edit the field, and you can see all the statuses we've defined in this organization. It might look very different in yours, but you can say, let's send a review every time we move over to ready for customer review. It's a really common one that we hear a lot. You can set this up differently. You could also do it based off when the job is closed or when you collect the last invoice, but let's use this example for the time being. So close that out, and I'm going to skip over to Zapier. It starts here on the dashboard. If you haven't created a Zapier account already, start with that. It's free to begin. And then you can say, all right, within JobTread, we want to connect this app over to Gmail in this case. Again, this can be whatever system you want to connect to. I'm just using this for the example. But whenever this happens, so in this case, I'm going to do the job is updated. I want to do this over in Gmail, which is send an email. So once you click try it, this will create the Zap and bring us into the builder. The first thing I like to do is adjust the name of the Zap just to make it a little bit more intuitive and not untitled. So we'll say job ready for review, send review via Gmail. Review request is probably better. And then you can rename these steps as well. So job updated in JobTread, send email and Gmail. That's good enough for now. So with this first trigger, you're saying, what are we doing this based off of? So, well, first it's going to ask you to authenticate your JobTread organization. To do that, it's going to ask you for a grant key. So in your settings and integrations, if you click on Zapier, just copy this grant key, paste it into Zapier, and then you should see this where you can continue, and then it will ask you to confirm the organization. In this case, it's Big Ranch Construction, and then it's going to run a trigger. So the trigger here is running a search of JobTread for the most recently updated job, and then it's pulling all the information across. We always recommend creating your scenario in JobTread and use that example instead of the randomly last one that was pulled. And the reason why is because if I go and I add some logic to this and say only show me jobs where the status is updated to ready for review, this job most likely isn't going to fit that bill and it's not going to allow me to continue. So I'm going to go back into JobTread. I'm going to my job list in this case. I'm going to choose this random job, click edit, and I'm going to update the status to ready for customer review because that's what I want the trigger to be. Again, that's up to you, but I'll click update. And again, I can update that here. That's doing the same thing. Also, if I'm utilizing the Kanban views and I move it over to the ready for customer review, that is also updating the job. So there's a number of ways to do it. But in any case, now I can search for that update. So I'm going to click where it says job C, and I'm going to load more results. And this should pull in the change I just made. So pull in the most recent one. It's called job F, but you need to just kind of scroll down and make sure this looks right. So yeah, that looks great. Ready for customer review. I see that. I'll click continue. That's the first step. We're one of 3 steps there. So the next thing is you want to do an intermediary step, applying a filter, because we don't want to really send an email every time the job is updated. We only want to do it in certain cases, right? if you don't do this step, the customer is going to get sick of you because you're going to send them a million emails. So let's do a filter and say we only want to continue with the zap of sending the email if the status is ready for review and it wasn't that before. So the second half is very important, because if you move it to ready for review and then you make a bunch of changes to the job later on, it would trigger that email to send every time. So we only want to do it when we're moving from something else to ready for review. So if you scroll down this list, at the very bottom in this case, we should see it says data next custom job status, ready for customer review. That's our current status. And then it says data previous. So that's how we can check what it was beforehand. So I'm going to use this first one and say it exactly matches ready for customer review. And this is the important part. Scroll to the bottom. The data previous does not exactly match that. Again, what it was not ready for customer review, but now it is basically what this logic is saying. And so if you click continue, it's going to run a test to make sure, would this zap have passed if we use this example above? And the answer is yes, and that's what we want. So we'll continue from here. Now our filters are set up, so the last thing is really just sending the email. So in this case, the most important thing, of course, is who we're sending it to. But we could say we're pulling from JobTread here, and the email should be listed, so just click on that value. So this will insert the email from the customer's account in JobTread. And so it's not something that you have to enter each time independently. And then from, so you can select who it's from. In this case, Travis@jobtread.com. And reply to, you can change the subject, request, please leave us a review. Maybe something a little bit better than that. And then body type, plain, and then the actual body of the email. So this is where you would write the email that you want to send to the client. So you could enter a dynamic name here, like hi, Casey Foster. And the nice thing about this, right, is when you send the email, it's going to update this each time based off the customer's name. But then just write out the body of the email. I recommend putting those links in directly for them so they can just click on it and then we'll send it directly to them. And signature, if you want to include that. And you can even pull from templates on this as well. So, every trigger is going to be a little different. Every system you're using is different, whether it's Nice Job, Gmail, any other, MailChimp. All of these actions are going to be different. But this is kind of the basics of how you can use it. So at the end of it, it'll ask you to test the action. It will tell you if it was successful or not. And it says it was sent. So if you want to start off with an example that's utilizing like a personal email or something like that, I absolutely would recommend that, so you can make sure the email looks good on your side of things. But when you're ready to go, you would publish this and you're going to be live at that moment in time. So if I go back to my dashboard, you'll be able to see all the zaps that you've set up. You'll see the ones that are turned on or off. But now that it's on, anytime I update a job to ready for review, it's going to trigger that action to happen, again, whatever we had set up. So that's the basics of how you can set up a zap to trigger when an update happens within JobTread. If you have any questions about that, please let us know. Support@jobtread.com. Thank you so much.